part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Been a long time since we've had a Dennis Manoloff Show, and I'll get into that in a second, but I want to welcome special guest Chase Smith to this show, and Chase is one of my all-time favorite people, and I'm so glad he's with us tonight. It will be an abbreviated show, again, for reasons that I'll articulate in a second, but Chase, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with me tonight.
No, D-Man, thank you so much for the invite. And you're one of my favorite people as well, man. And it's just been an honor to get to know you over these last 3, almost 4 years, man. And it has been incredible. And I just can't thank you enough. And to be on your final show of the Dennis Manoloff Show it is an honor. And at least in this avenue of us talking sports and life, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. And, if not for Chase, I wouldn't have gotten involved in podcasts at all. And on this great network, the PPP network, I was able to be one half of the, Next Man Up pod with Kenny Rhoda, which was all my pleasure. I mean, Kenny was awesome, and I just was happy to be with him. And then I did the Dennis Manoloff Show, and so I had, 2 opportunities there, and I couldn't be more thankful and grateful for them. The reason I'm not able to continue, and the reason I had such a pause between the previous podcasts and this one, is simply because of my physical ailment, because of my health, and it relates to my throat. My throat is just not doing well, and it hasn't been doing well for a while. And I have a radio responsibility that requires me to do a decent amount of hours on the radio, and I've had to pretty much cut out everything else because my throat just can't hold up. And I know that, somebody like Roadman, who's been on the air for 30 some odd years, and he's done it, a billion more hours on the air than I am. He's probably laughing at me, but I just found that, the podcast and any other speaking I was doing was really, really taxing my throat. And in order to keep the radio gig going, I had to cut down everything else. And so it wasn't fair to you and to Press Play that I, have one show every 6 or 7 months. And, I apologize for that. And I didn't want it to end. Number one, I didn't want it to end like this, tapping out on account of a throat problem, which I never could have ever envisioned would happen. But that's it. I mean, that's really the reason. And, I wish that I could go on and on and on. I don't want you, Chase, and the Press Play Podcast Network to shut the door on me entirely after this episode.
Oh,
I mean, I hope you'll have me back as a guest or
man.
Whatnot.
Of course. Well, let me just say this, man. Anytime we have you in any capacity, it's fair for us. So you don't owe us anything, man. Like it was fair that you, D-Man, in 2019, your ability to say yes to a guy you didn't know on a network that was just starting out, with people that I think you have heard of, but was gaining like it was gaining a professional reputation and like reputable journalists. You said yes, and you and Roadman said yes, and so like you do not owe us anything, and the word fair, like that, don't. Anything that you do with us is fair to us, man. There's no like, hey, we have to have this. No, man. And so I think back to that conversation, man. And I feel like everything has been just so incredibly more than fair, just to me. And so I just don't ever feel bad. Don't ever feel like, oh, you're letting anyone down. You're not letting anyone down, D-Man. And it has just been a pure pleasure and joy, a delight to work with you on air, off air. And this is not the end, maybe of this show, but for sure, be a friend of the network for all time, D-Man. So don't worry about that, man.
Well, I appreciate that. It makes me feel better. And I'm so proud of what you have done. You and your crew have done with Press Play, and how you built it, and you've done it the right way, and the stable of podcasters that you have. And that's why I want to stay part of the PPP family and contribute in any way I can on a limited basis. But yeah, I just want to make sure that the listeners understood that the reason that I can't continue with the Dennis Manoloff Show is the voice just isn't giving me the opportunity to do it. And I was mentioning in the pre-show meeting with Chase that my mom, she passed away in 2014. She's probably laughing in heaven right now because, the one thing she couldn't get me to do when I was a kid and even when I was a young adult was shut up. And, she figured, she recognized that I had an endless supply of talk. And so it would be, it's kind of crazy if she's paying attention up there. They're like, oh, my son Dennis has a voice problem. You got to be kidding me. Like he must have used up all his words when he was a miscreant back in the day. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy when the voice goes on you, and when you start to feel that real pain in the back of your throat. And I've tried everything. I mean, medicine. I've talked to the doc. I've done the sprays. I've done the lozenges. I've done the, almost the steroid type stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. And it's too bad, because I thought in this this chapter of my life, it would be predominantly speaking, because the first 20 to 30 years of my professional life were writing. I did some speaking along the way. I did some guest appearances on radio and whatnot, but mostly I was a sports writer, at the Plain Dealer for 30 years. And I thought, okay, this evolution will be talking. And in the radio part, yes, but the reason I really appreciate you is because you understand that I need to keep the radio thing going.
Oh,
and in order to preserve the voice at all, I gotta keep everything else limited and just focus on the radio. So
yeah.
But that's why we're coming to an end here. But I did want to say, that I think the previous pod we had was me celebrating Ramirez. Was that correct? Me celebrating the Ramirez contract. So that would have been right before opening day. So that was, I think so. Or did we have another one?
You recorded one in
that?
June. That you did highlight your throat in June. You talked about the Guardians, the NBA Finals, Deshaun Watson, and Phil Mickelson.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right, there was the Ramirez celebration pod.
And
then there was time off, and then I explained my throat in June, and then I hadn't had one until now. I mean, when I look at the Guardians, so we haven't had a chance to wrap the Guardians. I mean, that was obviously a tremendous season, and hats off to the Guardians to win the division like that, win a playoff series, go to 5 games with the Yankees. Tons of props to the the Cleveland Major League Baseball team in 2022. The way they did it, how the camaraderie, the kids, led by the veteran manager who deservedly got AL Manager of the Year, Terry Francona. That was a real thrill ride, covering that team, at least doing post game shows on News Radio, WTAM 1100 and 106.9 FM, and here in Cleveland. But I didn't have a chance. I mean, I hadn't done a pod since the end of the season, and obviously disappointing to lose to the Yankees. But if we want to be honest about it, and we always try to be, on these shows. Cleveland was going to lose to Houston in the ALCS. I mean, doesn't mean you don't want to take them on. It just means that Houston was as stacked as any team I've seen in the American League in a while, and they showed it by just sawing through the Yankees and sweeping them. I'd like to think Cleveland could have put up a better fight than the Yankees did, but the Astros were destined to win, the AL. Now, were they automatically going to win the World Series? I don't know. I mean, they turned out to win it in, 4-2 over Philly, but it certainly felt like they were destined to win the American League. And so there's no shame in bowing out like Cleveland did to the Yankees, even though they were up 2-1, had game 4 at home. I think the Yankees were better than Cleveland, but I don't have that pit in my stomach about the end of the season because I knew the Astros were waiting the winner of the ALDS, and I had 100% certainty the Astros were going to win that series. So I'm not down on you. Normally, when a playoff exit, I'm down on it for days, weeks, months. This one I got over in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, the future is so bright for the Guardians. So much young talent. I mean, everyone agrees that they overachieved this season, but that just has created such an incredible foundation. Tito's coming back, so that was a question I think lingering on the team going into the offseason. He's going to be back for at least one more year. And D-Man, the comps between the Guardians and the Cavs are just truly uncanny. And so the future is bright for the young Guardians, the young Cavs here, D-Man.
No doubt. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Cavs. I haven't spoken on these airwaves since Donovan Mitchell was acquired by the Jazz, from the Jazz by Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey. Incredible trade. You get a superstar in Mitchell, and yeah, you had to give up a lot, but you didn't give up the core. You kept Garland, you kept Allen, you kept Mobley, and I can't wait to see what these Cavs do. And the 2022 Guardians had a lot of comps to the 2021-2022 Cavs. That was the 4th season post LeBron 2.0, and that was the season when they, went 44-38 and faltered down the stretch, largely because of injuries, fell out of the top 8 in the conference, wound up being in the play-in, lost the 2 play-in games. But as that season unfolded, you saw the young core, you saw a group that really enjoyed playing with each other. And you said the operative word when you watched last season's Cavs was fun. Mm-hmm. Well, what was happening with the 2022 Guardians, the same thing. Yeah. You're watching this team play, you see how they get along, they're all young. Most of them are young, and everybody's pulling for each other, and you say, fun, 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 fun. And you're like, geez, where was I talking about fun regarding Cleveland sports? Oh, that's right. It was last year's Cavs. You start to draw the comparisons, and it really is kind of, interesting, to say the least. And so I do see a lot of similarities. And, this season's Cavs, yeah, they're still fun and they love each other still, but it's different. When you have expectations, it's different. I said last season when the Cavs were playing that you're not going to be able to duplicate this again. This is not this particular season with no pressure and surprises everywhere you look and guys getting along. That's a once in a generation type of season. You don't replicate it because the next season, the expectations are so much higher. And when expectations are raised, then invariably disappointment can potentially creep in, and suddenly there's pressure on you to deliver wins where there wasn't pressure before. And so I'm not saying that we don't have fun watching the Cavs now, and the Knicks game notwithstanding. yesterday, but it's different. It's a different feel. And that's how it's going to be with the Guardians next year. Next year's Guardians are not going to be the fun-loving bunch that this year's Guardians were. Yes, we will appreciate how young they still are. Yes, we will appreciate how much we think they are going to enjoy playing with each other. But it's not like they're going to sneak up on anybody. It's not like they're going to take anybody by surprise. They are the defending AL Central Division champions, so the expectation is that they're going to win it again until proven otherwise. And with that expectation of a defending division champ, you're going to have the expectation that you're going to go farther in the playoffs. Yes. And so, that's what I'm talking about. You treasure those seasons that come out of nowhere because the subsequent seasons are different. And, that's where we are with the Cavs right now, and that's where we'll be with the Guardians next season.
Great. D-Man, I want to respect your time. Before we log off here, I want to throw a couple stats your way just to acknowledge and celebrate your work with the network here. You launched Next Man Up on May 31st, 2019. Been with us for 3.5 years. Yeah, with the Road Man. You had close to 40 episodes of the Next Man Up podcast, and this will be the 44th episode of the Dennis Manoloff Show. So cumulatively, D-Man, roughly you've brought in over 10,000 downloads to the network.
Is that good?
That's great, D-Man. Oh my gosh, that's great. Your interview with Phil Bova, which was incredible, was one of the top downloaded episodes on the network. It did really well. And your interview with Luis Gonzalez, Brian Anderson, Kurt Schilling, Ron Hasse were just incredible work, man. And so I just wanted to celebrate you and say thank you. And this is just an honor to be a part of your master class in hosting and sports knowledge. So you took me to you taught me so much, and every time was an education. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, again, you're too kind. I love Chase Smith. I love the PPP. I love Roadman. Roadman is, you want to talk about a stud and a pro's pro. And he and Regs are doing such great work, in a combo now. And I listen to them a lot. And, those two guys are Hall of Famers in my mind when it comes to this industry and radio, TV, whatever else you want to call it, podcast, anything involving the voice. Rhoda and Reg are awesome. So, man, thank you.
I'm going to let you off the hook, and I'm not going to make you pick a favorite between me and Jeremy and Akron. I'm not going to make you do that. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's another thing. Jeremy, all the people at Press Play. Like I said, this to me, as long as Chase approves, this is not a sign off of me to PPP. It's just a sign off of me to the Dennis Manoloff Show. And I would love to contribute down the road, when asked, if asked.
Yep. Of course.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chase. And thank you, everybody, all the listeners out there, everybody who downloaded, everybody who listened. It was always an honor and a privilege for me to come in front of you with Next Man Up and also with the Dennis Manoloff Show. And I can't wait to, continue to listen to the next PPP podcast. And thank you very much, everybody. And we'll talk to everybody sometime down the road.